Hello and welcome to Detroit Comics Party episode 72. My name is Kevin Eckert. I'm here with Mike Burridge. And Danielle Aubert.
Hello.
The author of the Detroit Printing Co-op book.
Yes.
And I'm assuming many other scholarly things. And you are a professor at Wayne State.
Yes.
You are is it president of the Teachers Union?
Yes,
Yeah?
Faculty and Academic Staff Union.
Okay, yeah, awesome. And we met when I think Natasha and I interviewed you for you won the one of the Kresge fellowships.
Yes.
And we had a good time talking to you, and I wanted to make something that was more than 2 minutes long.
Nice.
So welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, yeah,
Happy
of
to
course.
be here.
Yeah. So I was kind of trying to get an idea. I don't even think we talked about this really. What was your kind of like timeline of coming to Detroit, and like what led you to the area and so on?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not from this area. I moved here in 2005. I had just gotten my MFA, in Master of Fine Arts in graphic design at Yale. And before that, I had actually been living in Moscow because my partner had a Fulbright grant. Like he had a like, if you don't know what a Fulbright, if people don't know what a Fulbright is, it's like
I don't.
It's like for academics, and you can spend a year in another country. And so he was doing this work in Moscow, and I, before that, had been living in New York City during like the .com boom and started working as a graphic designer, like web designer. And I thought, well, I'll go to Moscow. Like, I like to travel. I'll check it out. And so I went there. It was a really hard place to live, to be honest. But then I ended up staying a little bit longer than him, and I got a job at a graphic design studio. And then
In Moscow.
In Moscow, yeah. And then moved back to go to grad school at Yale, which I was like very excited about because it was nice to be back. At that time, it was like nice to not be in Moscow. It was just hard for me to be there. I didn't really speak Russian. So I came back to the U.S. And also it was really excited to be around graphic designers because I had been like interested. Like I felt like there was like more potential to graphic design than what I was getting from my job. I was like, graphic design is interesting. What I'm doing right now, which is like isolating pictures of cell phones, and putting them on like some website is not that interesting. So grad school was really great in that way. And then he got a job at Wayne State, and I moved out here, but we didn't really know anybody here, and it was hard at first because we didn't know anybody, and everybody from the program I went to was like moving to New York or LA or whatever, and sort of getting feedback from some people like, you're making a mistake, like, where are you going? You're going to somewhere near Minneapolis. Like, people had no idea where Detroit was. So then I came in 2005, and it was actually kind of great. I mean, it was hard at first because I didn't know a lot of people, but MoCAD was just opening like in 2006, and somehow I kind of connected with people that were involved in just getting that started, and I did graphic design work for them, and I was like, my friends who are in New York and stuff aren't getting a chance to work on things like this. Like, there's like all this competition to do work for like the Whitney or MoMA or whatever, and here I'm like kind of fresh out of graduate school, and MoCAD is like giving me work to do.
Yeah.
And also they were always so kind of last minute about everything that I could kind of do whatever I would like propose. They'd be like, sure, and so I felt like there was also a lot of flexibility. So, but I was making no money. So it was like after
an infinite resource that we seem to have in Detroit is free work for nonprofits that happens at the last minute.
That happened, right. And then you're like, you have like all this flexibility to be, to be like creative or whatever, but and it would, to be fair, like I also was not very good at like writing contracts or like negotiating my own pay, and, or like thinking through how much time things were going to take. So like at the end of a year, I'd be like, wow, I made like $18,000, and then that's not enough. And I'm also like, no, and it was like way more all-nighters than I had ever
Yeah.
had. And I was like, this is not working out. And then Jonathan was at Wayne State, and he's like, I'm telling you, an academic job is a cush situation. But I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I want to do that. But then a job opened up for graphic design. He's like, you should apply. And I was like, well, I'll apply. And then I got the job. And then it really is it's a stable cush situation.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I mean, higher ed is under attack, and we can talk about that later or whatever if you want to. But yeah, just the thing of like getting a steady paycheck and getting health insurance was really huge. And then because of the way Wayne State is as a research institution, I felt like I could get funding to do other projects. It's like the Detroit Printing Co-op.
Yeah.
You know?
So tell us a little bit about that. I think it's a super artist move to a place and then go, you know how I'll get to know everything around here is I will write the definitive book on this part of the culture of this area, which I think is like, that's a great way to learn. I mean, I understand that for sure. So how did you, like, did you encounter something, like some items that they had created and that got you interested in it? You said something about before when we were talking about like going to John King and finding some material there.
Yeah, so with the Detroit Printing Co-op, like I don't really remember. I remember taking note of their union bug. Mm-hmm. So Detroit Printing Co-op was like a place where anybody could print for free as long as you like helped maintain the equipment. So the equipment, the printers were considered social property. Like they were basically kind of anarchists. So as long as you took care of things and contributed, like there's certain things you sort of had to pay for, like with regards to like supplies and things, but like basically anyone could use it. So they printed a ton of stuff over in the 70s, and everything they printed had this little bug on it that says like all power to the people, no, all power to the workers, abolish the wage system, abolish the state. And so they were members of the IWW, Industrial Workers of the World, and I have some memory of like taking note of the bug, you know, because I was like, this is Detroit. Like, what is this thing? But then in 2012, I think, Steve Panton, he ran a gallery on Edwin Street, if you know that, and then on Campo.
Do you know what it's called?
So the one on Campo was 9338 Campo in Hamtramck. But then
yeah.
Before that, it was Edwin Street, which was basically his apartment.
Okay.
Or it was his apartment, but he would have like shows there. And he organized a show of Black and Red, which was the publishing, like, I don't know if you call it a company, the publisher that was started publishing house, I guess, that was started by Freddie and Lorraine Perlman. And they were two of the founders of the co-op. So they, like, ran the co-op for 10 years, but they also published all these things under Black and Red Press. And then when the co-op physical location closed in, like, 1980, but Black and Red still exists out of Lorraine's basement in Ferndale. So he did a show on Black and Red, and that's when I got kind of like interested in it from the design perspective, because I was like, because the thing is it's like if you talk about graphic design history in Detroit, you always hear about like Cranbrook, or sometimes you would hear about like some of the psychedelic poster designers from the like from Cass Corridor, like Gary Grimshaw or Carl Lundgren.
Yeah, that guy sucks.
but I felt like, but then there's all these other things that you can see if you go to John King or whatever. You can see all these like pamphlets. Like there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's not maybe made by people who like have an MFA in graphic design or like kind of enter into those circuits. So so the stuff that they were printing, especially Freddie was printing, was like really weird, like kind of wacky. And so Steve Panton encouraged me to try to like organize a follow-up show that was just looking at the stuff from the point of view of like design, because he was more his show was more like a political show in a way. So so I just started to collect the materials, and then he introduced me to Lorraine, and then Lorraine, showed me more stuff, and then, but yeah, it's like you said, it's like when you're new to an area, you kind of can approach things like fresh or something and be like,
Or just,
I'll
like,
research
this
that.
idea of like approaching it as
Right.
an art project,
Right,
you know,
right.
where it's like, if I'm gonna collect all this information,
Right.
it's gotta be for something.
Right.
Did you blow the market for all those books though? Because now they're all
Are they expensive?
$1,200 now.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
Like which ones? Like Manual for Revolutionary Leaders or
All the kind of,
Freddie Perlman books?
yeah.
Oh no. You know, I don't know because yeah.
And all the stuff that I can't get your book because it's expensive and I'm too poor to buy your book. But
Oh, I have actually a lot of extra copies. I should have brought
but
one.
like the stuff they're describing, like the overprinting,
Yeah.
like anything that has that,
Yeah.
which I'm sure are from the promo pages of your book. It's
Right.
like what the graphics are in your book is describing these overprinting methods.
Yeah.
And like anything that has that is,
Is it expensive now?
yeah.
Oh no. Okay.
Starting at $1,200.
I'm actually supposed to see.
Impossible.
I'm supposed to see Lorraine this weekend, and she will be like upset if there's somebody that like can't afford to buy some of their stuff. So she will send me back with like a pamphlet to like give to you if she hears that there's someone who like wants these things. Because whenever I would see her, she like we went to the Detroit Art Book Fair together.
Yeah.
And she was selling all these like. Books for like $2, like, you know.
Well,
and then
we're definitely going this year,
These like
then.
pamphlets, these gatefold pamphlets that they
Yeah.
printed. She was selling them for like $1, and people were going through.
Oh my god.
I mean, but for her, she just wants the message out there. I mean, you know, they're all like political texts.
Yeah.
And also she has them, you know, in her basement. I mean, it was never about profit making for them. Somehow, I mean, they were able to live, but that is kind of funny about the market.
Well, I think, like, boy, like, all those printing methods are, like, still accessible, at least. I mean, we could make those happen, like,
Yeah.
tomorrow. Like, we could get on press with enough colors, with enough overprinting and,
Yeah.
like, multi-pass things, like, to reproduce those in some sort of, like, very accurate way.
Yeah.
But then also, like, our friend Gary, friend of the show, Gary Reichel, like, as soon as people realized, like, his band, it was one of the first punk bands in Detroit, like, and I was like, I got 400 copies of my first 45 in my basement. And now they're like $100 a piece on the internet, you know?
Oh,
when
wow.
he couldn't give them away for 50 cents a piece when he was
Wow.
like, when they were first coming out
Man,
in
oh,
the
man.
70s. But,
Wow.
like, I mean, I want to make money off my books that I publish and our
Yeah.
books that we work
Yeah.
on together. And, you know, in a far-flung future, I'd love if somebody was like, Mike and Kevin, those guys were real special, and they're worth $1,000 now, and I would love that.
And
But,
we'll
like,
go the same. We'll go, oh, good, because we still have 2 boxes, like 200 copies a piece of Lay to the Bone.
Yeah, but I'd also like to fuck that market up with, like, I know exactly how we produce that work. We
Yeah.
can do it again.
Oh, right.
And I
Sure.
will dilute that $1,000 a book market into back down to a $5 or $10 book market.
No, but then they'd be able to tell because that's the thing with those their books. It was like there's like the first edition Society of the Spectacle, and then there's the ones that came out where they were printed in like Celine, you know, like at some printer. That because when I was working on my book, Lorraine. Like, it was sort of depressing to me because, like, I was working on the book about the co-op for, like, I don't know how long, like 3 years or something. And Lorraine kept being like, oh, I got to go pick up a copy of these books. Like, she was printing new books that she was editing and, like, designing because she can work in InDesign. And I was like, how have you made, like, 3 books at the time that I'm still, like, working on this research? But the later books, like, I mean, yeah, it's the overprinting stuff. It's the stuff that they did at the beginning that's cool. I mean, and the other thing is they were working on this really old printer. So it was like this Harris was the name of the company that, like, made the offset press. But even when they got it, it was already 50 years old. So it was, like, impossible to align, you know, to, like, do the registration properly.
Yeah.
And so you have to get that special quality of, like, the bad print.
We can do that.
And this is why
Yeah.
risograph prints are so, like, valuable now is because you can't register it the same
Right,
at
right,
every
right.
impression. Every one of if you do 500, every damn one is
A little bit.
fucked up worse than the last
Yeah.
in a perfect way or
Yeah.
in an interesting way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
So you went through, you kind of went through a period of, you found out about it and then started collecting material that came from them, from a certain time frame. And then were you able to find information about them elsewhere, or did you have to do a lot of like interviewing and talking to people in person, or both? I don't know.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of interviewing. So the thing that was like that I had talked about with like Steve, who did the first show. So first it was just a show, and then I was like, we should do a catalog for the show, and then it kind of turned into a book, which is a good way to like. I like to work that way, where it's like you just aim low. You're like, we're just gonna do a little pamphlet, and then it like becomes something bigger over time. But like, first we organized this exhibition at his gallery. So he had done the first one, and then we were like doing kind of a follow up. And so the shift was that we were going to try to get everything printed there, not just black and red books, because then we could include Radical America, which is really cool. I don't know if you saw the pictures of that, but that's that's the SDS publication.
Yeah.
Students for a Democratic Society. And so that was designed in Massachusetts, which is also interesting because that period of printing was sort of like the paste up moment. And I always feel a bit like weird talking about this as an authority because I don't really know what I'm talking about. Like, just how people have explained it to me. But it was like, like, so before that, you kind of had to be like on site next to the printer in order to like prepare everything because of just the kind of equipment you were using. But like in that period, sort of like 50s, 60s, 70s, you could kind of like start to separate people from the machines. So like you could have people doing paste up and like assembling the pages, and then they would like mail them to the Detroit Printing Co-op, and then they would photograph them and print them. So
was that like nationwide SDS content that was being printed just
in Detroit
for the Detroit audience? So
it was national distribution.
No, that's what I mean though. I mean like they were sending the content of a magazine that was for the whole country to Detroit so it could be printed and distributed here, right?
From here, yeah. So like it would be the equivalent of like someone sending InDesign files to a printer in like Hong Kong, and then they will like send it out to their subscription list or whatever. So they were printing it in Detroit because Detroit was, this co-op was sort of known at that time also kind of nationally of being like this co-op of being a co-op printer, like that had like the real ability to actually print stuff. And they were trying to be serious printers. But I will say I have talked to other printers who were kind of on the left who were working at that time who were like, oh, they were just like dilettantes. Like they didn't really know how to, like they couldn't really print that well, So
I like that idea of the dilettante becoming the authority.
I know.
Oh boy.
As somebody who's spent some time in the print industry, just like somebody who's also spent some time in the cooking industry, you'll never acknowledge that your competitor is doing a good job.
Right.
Doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right. But it's also like it was also just like a totally different model because they would have like high school students in there, doing stuff, and people that would, because the idea was like everybody can learn, and so I think.
Maybe they got that rep just because they were being nice and they were like, yeah, we have all the equipment, we'll let people learn on it. Which isn't something a company who wants to make a bunch of money does.
Would do.
Yeah.
I mean, but also if you look at the things that they printed, I mean, the pages, sometimes the things are kind of crooked or like the registration's really off. But I think some of that has to do with the fact that they were using this kind of wacky machine that was really old.
Yeah.
Is it viable to like try and do something similar to that now, or do you have a vision of what could be the modern equivalent of that?
Yeah, well, as you know, the print industry is so different right now.
Yeah,
I mean, so like so Rizzo is maybe like the analog that sometimes people reference, but from working in print, that like it's just such a different like print landscape right now.
Yeah.
But I think so. And also, like, I mean, the other thing that's also interesting to note is, like, they were getting, like, followed by the FBI and stuff. Like, they were really seen to be, like, politically threatening because of what they were putting out. And they were also printing things that they couldn't print elsewhere because it was, like, censored. Or, like, I mean, it wasn't officially censored, but, like, they couldn't find another printer willing to print it.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a different. So then if you think about, like, what is there, like, I guess, an information dissemination space or something that's under that level of, like, restriction, you know? I would say then that would be where, I mean, so it depends on what analog you're looking for, you know, or like, but from the point of view of, like, the political point of view, I think probably it's digital, it's like internet spaces of some kind. I don't know. I mean, people can say all kinds of stuff on the internet, but
I wonder what's the communication, what are the words that get you on the FBI list anymore?
Oh, like nowadays?
Yeah.
well,
Like, I don't even feel like any of the things that I want to say are, like, way under the FBI radar. Like, my most extreme politics are probably not worth their time.
Yeah.
but you know, I was just thinking about this because, like, do you know, were you following Detroit Will Breathe and, like, the protests, the George Floyd uprising protests from, like, 2 summers ago? So, like, do you know, were you following the Detroit stuff at all? Because, like, Tristan Taylor was, like, one of the leaders of their movement, but, like, he's up for trial in Shelby Township next month.
For what?
Because for this, like, 2020 march where, like, so there's, like, 5 of them that are up for trial because they were arrested. I mean, they were arrested countless times, like, that summer, but they were arrested in Shelby Township, and then, you know, now they're going to trial. But basically, they had gone up for a protest following some. There's had been something that happened out there, you know. So then they were doing that thing of, like, going out into these sort of suburbs, like, sort of hostile suburbs sometimes. But they, like, as soon as they stepped off the curb, they got,
march or
like,
what?
to march,
Okay.
and they would, like, take the street, you know. But they were doing the same marches that they would doing in Detroit. So anyway, the point being that, like, Tristan Taylor's probably being followed by the FBI. I mean, there's definitely people now who are, like, whose communications are being watched.
Yeah.
Not, you know, not us, but, like,
I get, it's probably just sneakier now.
I don't know.
Like, there's more watching and less anyone knowing that there's watching.
yeah.
I found 2 nights ago, I was on SoulSeek. I was getting record, I was, you know, bootlegging music
Yeah.
on SoulSeek. But then it was like Peter Sotos, all of the Peter Sotos books as PDFs right away in one folder. Let's get that. And I felt like my whole internet, like, ground to a halt while I was downloading. Like, oh no, they're downloading my entire computer documents because I'm getting Peter Sotos. And then I looked at that shit and it was like,
best VPN for downloading books.
VPN for getting that.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I interrupted you.
Stuff's boring. I thought Peter Sotos was cool when I was in high school.
Wait, who is, I don't know who's Peter Sotos.
He was like, he did a really good documentary book about, oh gosh, the first, like, gonzo porn guy. He did, like, a really long interview book with that guy. I can't remember what the book was called, but that was actually, like, a good piece of documentary work. But I think Peter Sotos did he did a lot of stuff for, like, Answer Me magazine.
Oh.
And he was boys with Boyd Rice, who's another problematic figure, but, like, I think he wrote a lot of stuff that bordered on maybe my typewritten fanfic is too close to, like, child pornography story fanfic. So he got a lot of heat for some things, but then he was actually, like, a good journalist. He had, like, 2 kind of
Yeah.
splinters of his life. I don't know. After reviewing all the work, it's, like, not very exciting.
and now you have his entire.
Now I'm on a list for getting those books.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, so that's the thing. I mean, I think that, so at the time, the other thing is so they were being sort of watched by the FBI, but the group that was really being watched was, like, the League of Revolutionary Black Workers. So, like, they were being tailed all the time, and I think that they were the, you know, like, the Black revolutionaries were, like, the real political threat. And I think it's sort of the same now. It's like Tristan Taylor is a threat, because he was like the face of the movement. I mean,
yeah, like you're doing more visible stuff.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
If you were looking for how do I figure out who's in charge of this, or
Right,
like
right,
how
right.
do
Who
I
do I
pick
like
to punish for this,
and to kind of
whoever the
quell.
face is the person they're gonna get, right?
And I think realistically, like, I don't know how influential the co-op or Black and Red. Like, I think the League was more threatening because they were organizing the auto factories and stuff, and like the Detroit Printing Co-op was more kind of the like, I don't know, like more like anarchists and stuff. Like, I don't know that there was like a real mass movement that was kind of like organizing around them.
It kind of seemed like there's a smattering of different social movements and different union action stuff that they were involved in, So it's
Right, they were
kind of
like coming
they're
through
not
that
just
space.
with one group or whatever,
Yeah,
Is that accurate?
Yeah, and they didn't necessarily like identify as like any kind of
Like, we'll just print any cool lefty stuff, kind of, right?
Right. And also like Freddie had his own kind of philosophy. I mean, he was definitely like, he did his own writing and stuff. So he was reading Marx and like writing about Marx and stuff, but he wasn't like, he would never say he's like a Marxist.
Sure.
And he also would, later he was sort of credited with starting like anarcho-primitivism or being an important anarcho-primitivist thinker or whatever, which is like sort of like green anarchist or like eco-anarchist or whatever. But
Okay.
but he would never like, he would always like resist any type of labeling, So.
That's probably good in a time of
Right.
very formalized lists.
right. Like, are you a tanky? Yeah.
So, okay, so you were physically collecting the pamphlets and books and stuff like that. You put on the show, right? Curated the show.
Yeah.
And then was it after that you decided, I want to keep going with this further?
Yeah. So then it was like the show, and then I guess when you do something like that, you have this feeling like you don't want to like leave anybody out by accident.
Sure. Yes,
so like
right.
I felt like it even though you can say all over the introduction like this isn't comprehensive, like you still feel this responsibility to try to be comprehensive. So like
sure, there's not like another book about it.
Yeah, right. And you're kind of like, okay, if I'm gonna put it all in, So then, I interviewed Lorraine a bunch of times, and then she put me in touch with a bunch of other people, and then So I talked to the people who did like Radical America, and then this like high school student who did like newspaper there when he was like 15, like a high school newspaper, and I just tried to get in touch with like, or I would find these things like for instance this like community calendar about the Cass Trumbull neighborhood that was like destroyed to make way for the Wayne State athletic field. So there was some like I found some like activists who, I mean, it turned out it was like people I actually knew. Some of them, I knew them through like other circles, and then it was like, oh, you did that calendar, and so I would just like ask them like, what was this about?
That's cool.
So
that seems like a neat thing to find because it would have so many like. Here's a list of actual things that are happening at this time and stuff.
Yeah. No, it was like, I mean, yeah. So actually, that calendar was more like it was like something they maybe sold to make money or something. Like,
it was just a calendar.
Yeah, it was just a calendar. No, so in fact, there was like
you put your own community events on.
Yeah. Like I found like a bunch of those actually, because there was also one that I think it was like a fundraising thing people used to do. Would be
okay. I think people still do it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like right.
You have a
right,
couple
like
of clients that do that.
Yeah.
Like the
for sure.
firefighters, like
yeah.
calendar.
Yeah, it's a trend for like I mean now it's a trend for people who have OnlyFans to sell their calendar as like a bonus object.
Right. Nice. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I only see it through the narrow vector that I get to witness in that industry.
Of other people talking about OnlyFans.
Oh, printing them for those people.
Yeah. Right, the printed calendar. It's like so this was like a community calendar. But then there was also one for like Vietnam, like against the war. Or no, like a kind of against the Vietnam War one. It was printed by another guy.
Yeah. I'm also, I don't know, I'm kind of assuming that like the leftist socialist cultural stuff was something you were already interested in before like finding out about any of this other stuff. Is that like what is your entry point into that as an interest?
Yeah, left politics. I mean,
Yeah.
I what is my entry point? I'm not really sure. I think but you know, I read something at some point that like blew my mind.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
about like colonialism.
Right.
And I was like,
wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, hey, this explains a lot. But I think that I feel like over time I've definitely been like interested in left things, or I mean, it's not like I'm interested in the left, but you know, you sort of feel like there's these injustices, and why is the world organized this way, where people are really
You're a
poor?
hardcore fascist, right?
But yeah. No, and I was like, how do I align with Mussolini?
You're like, nah, it's just really interesting.
But I think that like, but in a different over the years, I would like try to like, you look at be interested in things in text, and then at other times try to like actively do things like myself, like join a group or whatever. So I think that like over time, you start to develop like radar. You're like, okay, this group is like good, interesting.
Yeah.
And then other groups, or this is an interesting group, but I can't figure out how to get into it. But then throughout that time, I would just be sort of like collecting texts and things. But to be fair, my partner is like the big collector. He teaches in an English department, so he was the one who had that like Fulbright at Moscow. So we've got like tons of like, Soviet propaganda in our house, and like Marxist stuff, or like stuff that was just, he collected in Moscow. Like at the time that we lived there, you could also, the market was such that you could still buy like early, like constructivist, like printed documents and things, just in like used bookstores and stuff. So we've always like collected those things. So a lot of the pamphlets from the co-op were, there were things that he also had. So like once I started collecting things, I was just looking in his library, and I was like, oh, we already have like a bunch of these things because we just bought them. Yeah.
I remember being at your house when we were doing the interviews, and you just like grab the shelf, and it's just a stack of like incredible shit from the 70s, 60s. Like
that's
just
all
like,
like
you want to look at
Jonathan
these?
stuff. I know.
It's like,
no, I
let
mean
me
he
get
would
my
get
gloves.
No, like Jonathan would get annoyed with me because I'd be like, "Can I borrow this?" And he's like, "You have to give it back." Like, because I would like borrow it for like a year. I'm like, I'm gonna
sign
borrow
this
it and then
receipt.
put it in this exhibition, and then like, But yeah, no, I mean, so I had done another project before that was on this like Ursula K. Le Guin. Do you know her? She's like a sci-fi writer.
Yeah, actually,
she's like she wrote The Dispossessed.
Yeah,
and also Left Hand of Darkness. So I got really into The Dispossessed before the co-op stuff. And then when I was doing all this work in like the archives and stuff with the co-op, I thought like I should. Well, it was around the time like Trump got elected and stuff, and I was like, I should really try to figure out how to get more active politically. So it's, because it's like you're like in the archives, but then I think the whole time you have this voice like that you're like removing yourself from like actual society or something by spending this time in. I mean, it's this back and forth.
I know the fear.
Do you know what I mean? It's like it's good to look at the stuff from the 70s. I mean, now I'm like I'm really glad I did that work, but then at the time I was like, what am I doing? Like, people are like in cages. I don't know.
Then also you were like right in time where like I feel like there's sometimes a feeling in research where it's like you're getting close to the time, and then it's like I gotta shoot now because once I pass this point I'm gonna be later. I'm gonna be
no, totally.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I felt late. I mean, you always feel late. I think,
yeah,
but because you're like,
Yeah.
you're like, I should have put this out earlier. But yeah, like, because really, I started thinking about it in 2012. And then I was sort of slowly, just kind of haphazardly collecting stuff, but not with any endpoint in mind. And then from 2000, after I did that show, it was like 2016, then I was like, okay, I'm making a book. And then, and then it still took like 3 years. I mean, I don't know. I could have moved faster. But one thing but I think as I was in the archives, then I got really involved with like the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, and then now it's like the Union. But I think that like it was sort of radicalizing in some way to look through all the stuff from the co-op. Because the other thing I'll say about this type of research that was really hard was that as a designer, I'm like, okay, I'll just like look at the stuff. But I was like, I can't really just look at it. Like I have to read it because I felt like so much of what makes it interesting is the content. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, I've set myself this task that requires me to read all these texts.
Well, and also like it isn't like they're just putting out. It's not a zine where every page is a photo.
Right.
It's very dense.
Right.
Text in a lot of them. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, and I was like, and I have to know at least enough to summarize what this is. Like, I mean, I didn't read everything all the way through, but there was one book I read. I would recommend it. It's called Letters of Insurgents, but it's like 800 pages. It took me like 4 months to read.
That's a long one.
And they're not like page turners.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, every day, let me read like 8 pages. But then I didn't. But there was another one that I think is supposed to be really good, The Straight, that I never read, and then also Against Leviathan. There's like some of his texts that are like the classic texts of, if for anyone who knows Freddie Perlman, like I didn't actually read, but they were printed after the co-op, so I'm like, well, they were printed like in 82, so they weren't at the Detroit Printing Co-op. But the early stuff, like the Marx, like these texts on Marx, or there's this other text called I Accuse This Liberal University of Terror and Violence. It's like a short title. Yeah, it's basically like against liberals. He's like super critical of liberals.
But I think I'm a graphic designer, but clearly you're a graphic designer, and I'm just like, I got InDesign. I'm an InDesign installer.
Yeah.
And you're a graphic designer. But you can't look at design work as purely aesthetic. No,
you can't.
Like, you have to only, like, the context defines everything.
Yeah. But like if I was gonna do like a book on Detroit Comics Party, it was like I wouldn't have to read that much. I could be like, let's talk about this and the way
these
it's
motherfuckers
designed.
use open sans and put a rounded stroke on it.
And it's Detroit Comics Party. but like with his books, I was like, oh god, I have to read enough, and then I have to understand this thing on like. Not that I have to I just have to understand enough to summarize it. So sometimes I would read summaries, but it's like you were saying initially, like there, like if whether I could I was getting this information. There's not that much on him to begin with, so like it's not like I could go to like somebody else's explanation of what this is.
Well, that's when you know you're on a good path of making a book. Right. There's no information available, and you have to do everything yourself.
You just have to, like, make it up.
If you want it, you're gonna have to get my book.
And you don't want to write the book where John Drawdoer says, "And that Wikipedia is still there."
Right.
Yeah. That's one of our favorite criticisms of like comics about real stuff, where if it doesn't do anything more than just recite the Wikipedia,
right.
What's the fucking point?
Right. Are there comics that recite Wikipedia?
Oh yeah,
my
that's a
God.
huge whole genre.
I would say we'll bring you some, but we would never buy
like
them.
Comics of like that are like
maybe about a historical event or movement or person or something. It's like this comic was about Thomas Jefferson.
I read
and
the
it's
one
like,
about
it's
Rosa
just
Luxemburg.
The crap that's in the Wikipedia. It's like so what? Like,
oh, you know what you guys should do, because there was an issue of Radical America that was all comics. And it's Paul Buell. They were really into comics. Actually, you should do a whole thing on Freddie Perlman, because they were really into comics as a way to get across the political message. Because they were just like, nobody's reading our shit. Like, it's too complicated. It's too dense. So let's make comics. But then, like, some of the earlier examples of them trying to do, like, comics is just they would put, like, talk bubbles on, like, collages. So there'd be, like, a picture of, like, Gerald Ford and then, like, a talk bubble.
Just says, I
but-
hate workers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I am controlled by the stock market, or like, and so then there would be like the kind of like an illustration. So then they were like, this isn't working either. So their comics weren't like great. But but there's a book by Paul Buell that's like a graphic history of SDS, and it mentions the Detroit Printing Co-op in it. But you can buy that one. I don't think that the price on that book is like super high because it was like published in like 2010 or something. So you can get used copies now.
Yeah.
But they had but then there is one issue of Radical America during that 6-year period where they were printing Radical America at the Co-op. There's one issue that was printed somewhere else, and it's the comic issue. So they printed it somewhere like better.
Detroit, notoriously hostile to comics.
Right, Detroit. They were like, they don't trust the Detroit
They're like,
Printing
we'll do pretty much anything, just not that. We're not printing that issue.
Maybe it's called like Radical. Yeah. Anyway, it's the Comix issue, and like also speaking of, I'm sure you know this, but I just taught history of graphic design. I teach it like most semesters, but I didn't know that like Cream magazine. So I guess I didn't quite realize they were printed in Detroit, and that like R. Crumb was did their thing, and I was like, he's a famous comics guy, right?
Crumb did a lot of stuff that he
Right.
didn't want to put his name on, too.
As if he could do something that you wouldn't be able to identify
Right,
as
yeah.
his immediately from the illustration.
There was like a documentary about him. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah. Where his brother is sad
Yeah.
and stuff.
The Academy Award-winning documentary Crumb.
Yeah.
About
yeah.
Robert Crumb.
Okay, yeah. That's what my aunt. When I was like in high school, my aunt managed a alternative movie theater, and she would.
Awesome.
They
She would,
probably
like-
played that motherfucker
Yeah,
like
we-
100 times in a row.
Yeah. So, because I was like, why have I seen this documentary?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's fucking rad. I copped that for like 19 cents the other day at the thrift.
Woo! Nice.
I got triples on VHS if you guys need
Nice.
some.
Yeah. Check out the link in.
Yeah, link in description. Yeah, except for now it's on eBay.
Okay,
It's
check out eBay.
$25.
Check out eBay for $25. Mike B. Junk Shop.
Mike B.
Okay,
Junk Shop.
no, wait, we're selling stuff. We're not allowed to sell stuff.
Oh no.
No, it doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
One day.
Theoretical eBay store. So I was kind of just curious to talk more about, your personal interaction with this. So like what kind of graphic design do you like to do the most? Like when are you happy doing graphic design, if ever?
If ever. Well, right now I'm happy if I can do any graphic design because the union work is like so.
Easy?
It's so easy. There's no politics involved at all.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it
And
doesn't
it's
take
like-
up
and it
much of your
doesn't involve-
time. There's not a lot of people beating down your door to do stuff for them.
Yeah, and it's also like all in my wheelhouse of exactly what I've been trained to do in my life is reading
I hate
legal
when people
contracts.
want us to do the stuff we're trained in the wheelhouse
No, I'm
to
just
do.
kidding. No, so literally like yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before? I was doing graphics for this like slate of candidates that's running for the National Council of the American, what is it, AAUP, American Association of University Professors, which is like, so we belong to like two unions, two affiliates, the
Is
AFT.
that the bigger one? Or-
Well, so there's the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, which is like K-12 and higher ed, and that's like huge. That's like $150 million budget, I guess, is their budget, like nationally, and they have like a lot of influence. But then there's the AAUP, which is the American Association of University Professors, which started off as more just like the kind of professional group, and that's where like tenure and like all these things kind of came out of, So they started like 100 years ago, but then in the 70s started doing union stuff, like so like there was collective bargaining involved.
Yeah.
So AAUP has probably like an $8 million budget, so they're like much smaller.
Okay.
And they're kind of tend to be like a bit more conservative or something, like they're kind of, so there's a tendency to have this focus on like tenure and stuff, but like really in the overall market of higher ed, there's like fewer and fewer tenured positions.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everybody's adjuncting, or if you have a full-time job, you don't have, it's not tenure track.
Yeah.
So
It seems like an unfathomable idea in 2022.
right, like tenure, right?
Yeah.
Tenure's so crazy. So it used to be like 75% of people in teaching in higher ed were tenure track, and right now it's like 70% are contingent. It's like completely flipped. So so AAUP, this is like too much backstory. You just asked me about graphic design, but like AAUP is like right now in talks with AFT, and they're gonna probably they're probably gonna like affiliate together.
Yeah.
But I'm part of this like group of more, let's say, like activist people getting involved in higher ed unions and trying to like make the unions like work for all campus workers and like abolish student debt and like kind of take on like these bigger issues than just like protecting tenure.
Right.
So although protecting tenure is important, I mean, I think you need to like, if you remove that out, you know, you it's just like free fall for everything else. So I feel like you kind of need to have this like strong base there. But I'm part of this group that's like running a slate of candidates for the National AAUP Council. And so I'm not running, but like one of the people was like, can you do the graphics? Because you're a graphic designer too, right? You know, and I was like, yes, finally someone's asking me to do graphic design. It's like,
Who, me?
and I was like, oh my God. And I was like in design, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. Like, because I feel like, like with the union work, like I don't even have the headspace to like do our own graphic design of like our own stuff.
Well, you're doing other stuff.
But
for
it's like I was like, okay, there's this other person strategized this whole thing, and they just need me to do the design, and it's just like nice to
That's cool.
be able to like rotate type and stuff and be like. Although I feel a little bit like I was like this. I made the whole thing, and I was like, now this looks like it's like an ad for like 2010s like undergrad art school, like CCS or SAIC or something. And I was like, this isn't the look I was like, I don't know what look I was going for. It's not necessarily this, but I also feel like I don't have time to try another look. So this is the,
Yeah.
you know, I was like, this is what we're going with. Yeah.
What's 2010 CCS? It's Pepsi
Like-
gradient with yellow crayon going over
No,
the
there's no crayon. There's definitely a gradient. And then also like circle photos, circle headshots.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody is like sepia toned. Yeah. But the text is like just a big sans serif on top. I don't know. I was like, this feels like it's the look. Because now I have to go back to like the weird other stuff of the job that like, or of the union work that is like really
Daily grinding stuff.
yeah, like it's just like you know, I sort of think of myself as like a designer, but I'm like doing this book, you know, I'm not just like a graphic designer. I like to sort of be expansive about what it is to be a graphic designer, but I think this role is like very expansive. Like I'm like my
Too expensive.
yeah, it's a little bit like too much in the world of like people in suits and stuff. Not that they're wearing suits, but like the kind of meetings I'm in is like
it's
policy.
like super high level stuff.
Yeah, like people talking about like income, like I don't know. I was in some university meeting where they were like talking about the inflow and outflow of funds, and I mean, I'll say this here, but
gloves in the supply closet.
no,
Like,
I was just
let's
like
talk
no, but
about
I was
that.
like sleepy. I was like this is really
yeah.
important information that's like consequential to everybody, but I'm also like
That's what I was
so
thinking.
bored.
If it's too far removed from like any kind of immediate human experience,
Yeah.
it just seems so abstract in a way, even though it isn't.
Yeah.
But it seems.
No, but it's like it's the kind of thing like if somebody else was there, like some lawyer, and they saw it and they told me like, what you're watching is somebody who's like taking all your money, I'd be like, ah. But like I can't, but I don't recognize that that's what's happening because
Right.
I'm like,
it's harder to recognize on that level. I
yeah,
feel
they're just like putting
so.
up these budget sheets, and I'm like, I mentioned that I could barely make enough money when I was like doing my own contracts. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand how to yeah.
This is why I'm poor. Anytime I'm at that meeting,
Yeah.
I just walk away.
Yeah.
And then I don't have that job anymore.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I'm used to sort of being around people who don't think about this stuff and then suffer the consequences. I mean, so that's why it's
Right.
important to be
Yeah.
in those spaces because
Totally.
you have to be
But it's not like a fun time.
it's not fun.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not fun.
Well, thanks for going to the
That meeting.
dense, boring meetings to save.
Well, I'm gonna need
democracy.
to figure something else out though. Like, I need to find other people to go because I also don't understand. I mean, I also just. I mean, I was sort of joking about it, but I'm not. I'm not trained to understand this stuff. Like, I
Sure.
don't. There's a reason I went into graphic design and not law school.
Sure. But you know how to talk to people and you know how to communicate things. So probably in your position, that is a valuable
Yeah,
thing
like
that
the
you
other-
have that maybe the people
Right.
who fully can parse a spreadsheet don't
Right.
have.
Right.
Or almost
But
certainly don't have.
Yeah.
that you do.
No,
So
I need
that's-
the person who can parse the spreadsheet to me so I can communicate.
Yeah.
I can make it into a graphic.
Yeah.
And be
Yeah.
inflow, outflow.
Much more
this is what you
understandable.
need to care about.
Yeah.
But
This is a big container of money. Here's
and
the
it's
money
none
that
of it's
goes
going
in.
to you.
This money
Right.
settled onto the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just Photoshop it to look like a giant fishbowl of cash
Yep.
with the arrows coming out both sides.
And then my face going,
Right.
please, can I have a drip?
One drip.
One drip of money, please.
I think this is another good argument for why a team is better than little lone wolves.
Yes.
That's true. That's true.
Because we know somebody who's an incredibly difficult autistic guy, but he's one of the most incredible, knowledgeable, what would you call that?
Yeah.
Data savant.
Data savant
Yeah.
that I've ever even had the displeasure of interacting with. But I work with him super well, and I'm
Yeah.
a good salesperson.
Yeah.
You're the
He
only
can't-
person who works
He can't
with
come to the meeting.
Right.
He needs me to go to the meeting to describe what his program does and what his database management software
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And I might not be able to design that well, but you could probably design a pamphlet that describes it well, and then you're good with you're a kind of all-arounder maybe, where you're
Yeah.
kind of good with all that stuff.
Okay.
All right.
You're an all-arounder.
That was, I like the thing you told me, I think, about the person you're talking about, which was if this person sees a way to optimize flow of money or accounting by
Yeah.
just viewing spreadsheets without being asked to, he'll write a new program that makes 50 jobs obsolete by
Well, now,
And then,
this is really, we have to be careful not to disclose who this is, but their last job, they got shit canned off their big three, big money, data, forensic accounting job for big three, because they basically wrote software that made their entire floor obsolete. Where they you could just fire everyone on this floor, and then, but that's only for his department.
Yeah.
They could implement this software at every department.
So did they? No.
Oh no, he got shit canned, and they deleted his.
Oh,
software.
really?
Yeah.
It's so far beyond
Well,
productivity
yeah.
level where
Well,
it's
because- and this is-
get that out of here.
This
Yeah.
is where union thing gets
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
in trouble as ruthless autistic data managers, where oh, everyone's got their union gig, gotta stay on till you get to retire. I don't know. My dad worked his fingers to the fucking bone on the factory floor making
Yeah.
auto parts, and he hated the union
Yeah.
the entire time. He said,
Yeah.
never join the union. You'll never get promoted. If you're in the union, you'll never get promoted.
Was he UAW?
Yeah, whatever
Must
the
have been
big
the
United
big one.
Auto Workers, is that what that is? Yeah.
Because he said he would never, you'd never get promoted because you were in the union?
And then I saw that when I was in grocery industry, where the first day on the job, the guy was like, when that union guy comes through, don't join. because you'll never be a manager
Yeah.
if you're in the United Food Commercial Workers.
Right. UFCW. Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
told that guy to fuck off as soon as I met him. And I was like managing the grocery store like 6 months later.
Yeah.
Making an order of magnitude more than when I started.
Yeah. So did you join the union? Did you join UFCW? You didn't.
No, I never did. That's why I succeeded. That's why I got a ton of money.
Uh-oh. Exploiting other workers. Is it or middle manager? Yeah.
Middle manager, yeah.
Yeah.
But is it bad? I mean, I've been so poor my whole life. Like, to take advantage of some people
Yeah.
doesn't feel so bad when I can get a little bit of extra, you know? Is it bad? Like,
I mean, well, what's my position on middle managers? I feel
no,
like
what's
a middle
your position
manager.
on taking advantage of others for your own benefit?
Well, yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, you know, I'm against it. I mean, I think that, but you know, we live in capitalism, so, like you said, if you're sort of like you're sort of scraping by, I mean, it's not. I don't judge people for like taking the promotion because you need to take the promotion, but I feel like then you just want to be aware of like what you're doing because basically what you're doing is you're just. I heard a quote today. It's like if you make $1 more off work you didn't do, you're taking $1 off of someone else is getting $1 less off of work that they did, right? So it's like it's getting redistributed somehow. So I don't know. I mean, I would have joined the union, but I would have. Well, I say that though. I haven't worked. I mean, you know, you're probably not getting paid that much to start with. But I feel like. You want there to be a strong union because then the more people can kind of like rise up. I mean, I was just listening to this thing on this podcast where they were talking about how like Whole Foods, like it was like union busting all the time. Like they didn't want a union. Same with Starbucks.
I worked there for a minute.
Yeah, but they're like very like inclusive and everything. Like it's
the same deal as REI, where it's like REI is a co-op. And the projected image of that is like, we're all cool hippies up in here and like we all get along and stuff. But even within that co-op, they've been trying to bust the like union. Like they've been trying to keep that from happening. So same with Whole Foods where like they project this like really like, earthy, everybody gets along image. But it's like, nah, this place is ruled with an iron fist, and there's no worker organization.
Well, that's the thing,
like,
and then,
or at least there wasn't when I was there a long time ago.
But this guy was saying that like at like the Safeway or Kroger, if they were unionized, they were making way more money, like at the same level as like what he was getting at Whole Foods because they were union, you know, so they had like.
Just depends on the place too. Like I remember getting approached at other jobs that I've had over the years by like a union person. They didn't even fucking explain it to me. They didn't even explain like what it was, why. Like they were just like, here's how much it is. Like if you want to do it, like you should do it.
And
like,
the dues.
And then not explain anything, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's a part of it too is like the outreach within those companies has to be a little more like clear or something. I don't know. We're like super out of time.
Oh yeah,
now,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. This could be a 9-hour episode, but I think we're going to cut it off. But Danielle, thank you very much. Do you have a website or anything where people can see your stuff?
Yes, it's my name, DanielleAubert.info.
Okay. So go to Danielle's info website for more information and info. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming.